Montana winters were merciless, but this storm felt biblical. A wall of white consumed the mountains, blotted out the horizon, and suffocated the sky in silence. Roads disappeared. Radio towers froze. Entire towns fell off the grid one by one. Snow didn't fall gently, it crashed like fists from the heavens. At Fort Harrison Army Airfield, Captain Emily Warren stood near the window of the flight operations room, arms crossed tightly across her chest, watching the radar in disbelief. Thick red bands circled the base like an angry bruise on the screen. Her breath fogged the glass. Visibility outside was less than 50 feet, and the wind howled against the hangar doors like a starving wolf. Inside, tension hummed louder than the generators. The base had gone on standby hours ago. All flights were grounded. FAA had ordered a complete air freeze across the Northwest. Medevac missions, rescue ops, even military exercises. Everything was halted. The storm didn't care who needed help. Then the call came. A buzz broke the static. A dispatcher's voice cracked through the speaker like splintering ice. Emergency request from Polebridge. Young male, 13, suspected ruptured appendix. No access by road. Town snowed in. Silence blanketed the room. Polebridge was remote, practically on the Canadian border. A tiny village nestled against the edge of Glacier National Park. In the summer, it was a quiet haven for hikers and artists. In the winter, it became a death trap. "They can't drive him out?" asked Lieutenant Mason, squinting at the screen. "Blocked. Roads, plows can't reach them," replied the dispatcher. "Nearest medical center is 120 miles. Boy's going septic." Emily's jaw tensed. She knew exactly what that meant. The child's organs were failing. Hours left, at best. The commander stepped in, grim-faced. "It's impossible. Not in this storm." "Deny the request." Emily turned slowly toward him. "Sir, if we wait he'll die." "We wait. He might die. We go now." "You will." "That's not a gamble I'm authorizing." She opened her mouth to protest, but he'd already turned away. Later, in the dim quiet of the break room, Emily sat with her hands wrapped around a mug of lukewarm coffee. Her gloves sat untouched on the table. Her mind wasn't in the room. It was in Polebridge, picturing a pale-faced boy writhing on a couch while his mother tried to soothe him with wet cloths and false promises. She could almost hear him gasping. She reached for her radio headset, flipping through local transmissions, static, whispers, faint voices. Then, through the snowstorm of noise, she heard it, the mother's voice, desperate, breaking. "Please, if anyone's listening, he's getting colder. He's not waking up. We're losing him. Please, help us." Her stomach dropped. Something inside her moved. Not panic, not duty. Something deeper. She looked down at her ID badge. Captain Emily Warren, U.S. Army Medevac Division. She had 10 years of flight hours, 2 tours overseas, and more combat evacuations than she could count. She didn't need orders to know when someone needed saving. She stood up. Back in the hangar, the Black Hawk sat waiting. Its matte frame was nearly invisible beneath the swirling snow. Most crews had already bunkered down. The medics were asleep or playing cards. Her co-pilot, Davis, caught sight of her and stood. "What are you doing?" "I'm taking it." "You're insane." "He's got hours left." "Davis, they'll court-martial you." "Let them." He stepped forward. "Emily, no one's coming with you." She nodded once. "I know." Then she walked past him, pulling on her helmet as snow swallowed her figure. 10 minutes later, the rotors began to spin. Inside the operations room, the radar blinked. One signal, one chopper, unauthorized. Captain Emily Warren had taken off into the teeth of the storm. Alone. The Black Hawk roared as it lifted off the snowy tarmac, blades chopping through the blizzard like a war drum. The whiteout swallowed everything, turning the airfield into a frozen blur. Emily could barely see 10 feet beyond the cockpit glass. Her heart pounded harder than the engines. She gripped the controls and pushed forward, inching into the abyss. In her headset, the tower's voice screamed through static. "Black Hawk 01, you are not cleared for flight. Stand down immediately." "This is a direct violation of command." Emily flicked the comms off. She didn't need the noise. She flew blind, relying only on instinct, years of muscle memory, and the faint preloaded GPS coordinates of Polebridge. But even the screen in front of her was glitching, scrambled with snow and ice buildup. It didn't matter. She wasn't turning around. Back at Fort Harrison, chaos erupted. The commander slammed his fist on the console. She took off. She actually did it. Without orders, Davis stood in the corner, silent. He had watched her go, unable to stop her, and now he couldn't tear his eyes away from the tracking monitor, where her dot flickered dangerously close to the edge of the screen. "She's going to die," someone whispered. Davis shook his head. "No, she's too damn stubborn." Meanwhile, inside the chopper, the cold had already crept in. The heater systems were struggling. Emily's breath fogged her visor. Her fingers numbed under her gloves. But she kept them tight on the controls. The turbulence was relentless. Winds slammed the chopper from all sides, tossing her left and right. Altitude readings swung wildly. Ice began forming on the rotor blades. Warnings flashed, icing hazard, system strain, signal loss. She muttered to herself, "Hold together. Just a little longer." Her mind flashed back to Kandahar, a mission almost exactly like this one, flying into a sandstorm to extract wounded Marines. She'd begged command to let her go, and they finally had. She made it in, but her co-pilot didn't make it out. That memory haunted her every night since. She'd promised herself she'd never let someone down again. Then suddenly, a flicker on the radar, a weak pulse, a locator beacon. Someone down there had lit up an emergency signal. Probably one of the EMTs in Polebridge using a handheld flare or beacon. It was faint, struggling through the snow, but it was there. Emily locked on, adjusted her angle, and dove low. Below her, the world was white and spinning. Trees like black needles, a frozen river. Distant headlights flickered through the fog. They were signaling her she was close. At that same moment, in the town of Polebridge, townspeople gathered in the center of the field. A red flare burned. In the snow, the mother, bundled in layers, held her boy tight, whispering in his ear though his eyes remained closed. "She's coming," one of the EMTs shouted. "We got a signal from the air. She's actually coming." The nurse stared up, lips parted in disbelief. No one was supposed to fly in this, and yet the sound came, a low rumble first, then the rising thump-thump-thump of rotor blades, slicing the sky. People pointed upward, through the heavy snow. The dark outline of a helicopter emerged, descending like a ghost with flashing red lights. The Black Hawk touched down in the field. The landing was rough. Ice cracked beneath the skids. The chopper rocked, but it stayed upright. Emily threw open the side doors. The townspeople rushed forward with the stretcher. The boy pale, barely breathing. The mother cried openly, clutching Emily's arm. "Thank you, God. Thank you, please. Save him." Emily helped secure the boy inside. She saw the monitors hooked to his chest. Shallow heartbeat, rapid fever, near collapse. There was no time to lose. She slammed the doors shut and gave the engine everything it had left. The bird lifted again back into the blizzard. There was no backup. No one watching her 6. Just a dying boy and a pilot who refused to wait for permission. The Black Hawk shuddered violently as Emily climbed back into the storm. Ice streaked across the windshield in jagged webs. The sky was nothing but darkness and spinning white. Instruments blinked and dimmed. The radar screen froze momentarily, then rebooted with an error code. She was flying blind again. Inside the cabin, the boy lay strapped on the stretcher, hooked to an emergency for drip and a portable heart monitor. The mother clutched his hand with red, chapped fingers, her eyes never leaving his face. Every now and then, she whispered, "You stay with me, baby. Just hang on." Emily wanted to promise her they'd make it. She wanted to say something brave, something a hero might say, but all she could focus on was keeping the nose level and the rotors from locking up. A cold draft snuck in through the damaged side panel. The heating system was dead now. Her hands, though gloved, were stiff and slow. Every movement of the controls felt like fighting through mud. Altitude, 6,000 feet and dropping. Fuel, 23% remaining. Visibility, less than 100 feet. She scanned for landmarks, rivers, roads, tree lines, but everything below was the same swirling white. It was like flying inside a snow globe someone had shaken to hard. Then, without warning, turbulence struck. The chopper dipped violently. Her head slammed against the side of the cockpit. A flashing red light blared across the dash. Rotor de-ice failure. She cursed under her breath and fought the stick. The aircraft groaned, vibrating under stress. Emily's mind raced. Come on, not now. Then came the memories. Kandahar again. She saw her co-pilot, Jensen, laughing in the seat beside her. Seconds before their bird had spun out of control. The explosion, the silence afterward, the cold, crushing guilt that followed her ever since. Not this time, she growled, eyes focused. She glanced at the boy in the rearview mirror, his lips turning bluish, body trembling. Every second was costing him something vital. There was no turning back. Suddenly, through the fog, a shimmer of light, distant, faint, but real. She leaned forward. Hospital lights. No, too far west, To low. It was a tower. The old ranger station near the Clearwater River. It was the first landmark she recognized in over 30 miles. She banked hard right, guiding the chopper closer to it. The snow whipped against the windows, but the outline of trees appeared below. If she followed the river valley south, she might just align with Missoula in under 20 minutes. She pulled the radio headset over her ears and switched to open band. Missoula General, this is Medevac 01. I have a critical patient on board. I'm coming in from Polebridge. Repeat, incoming from the north. Static. Then a garbled voice cut through. Copy 01. Say again, did you say Polebridge? Yes. I need a hot landing zone. This child won't last long. There was silence, then another voice. We thought no one was coming for that boy. Helipad is iced, but we'll clear it. ETA 19 minutes, might be rough, we'll be ready. As Emily adjusted course, the wind shifted, just slightly. The snow thinned for a moment, enough to see the first sliver of the frozen Clark Fork River snaking below. A natural compass. She locked eyes with it, following the gleam. In the back, the heart monitor beeped slower now. Emily reached into the side panel and flipped the emergency reserve fuel valve. Hold on, kid, she whispered. I'm not letting go. Outside, the storm raged, but inside the cockpit, something steadier burned. Determination. Fear. And the fragile thread of hope holding them all together. Asterisk. Snow whipped across the spinning rotors like shards of glass. Emily's vision blurred as she pressed the chopper forward, following the shimmering curve of the Clark Fork River below. It twisted like a silver snake through the white void, her only guide in a world erased by storm. The boy in the back was fading fast. His heart monitor emitted a slow, irregular beep beep, then a pause that stretched too long. The mother clutched his hand and pressed her forehead to his, rocking back and forth. Please, baby, please stay with me. Emily gritted her teeth. The chopper's left stabilizer shook violently in the wind, and for a second, she thought she was going to lose it. Her muscles ached from the constant pressure. On the controls, her gloves were damp with sweat, her sleeves soaked through. The cold crept into her spine and settled in her bones. She glanced at the fuel gauge. 14%. We're cutting it too close. Up ahead, she saw the first flickers of light. Missoula city limits. A few scattered headlights on empty roads. Somewhere, in the dark, the hospital stood waiting, a beacon of warmth and life. But she still had a dozen miles to cover and no guarantee the chopper would last that long. Missoula Tower. This is Medevac 01. She called out, voice hoarse. We're inbound. Patient unstable, requesting priority landing. Repeat. Priority landing. Copy that. 01. Helipad's being cleared now. Winds are rough. Can you hold? No. I'm coming in hot. Understood. We'll light the beacon. Emily adjusted the chopper's altitude, dipping lower to avoid the worst of the gusts. The controls fought her every move. Alarms blinked. Hydraulic pressure low. Temp warning. Fuel critical. She looked back at the mother. Their eyes met for a second. I can get you there, Emily said, voice calm despite the chaos. But you have to hold on. The mother nodded, tears freezing on her cheeks. Then the worst happened. The main engine sputtered. The sound dropped pitch, just slightly but enough for Emily to know something was failing. The backup system kicked in, barely holding the altitude. She slapped the console. Come on, not now. Missoula was closer. She could see the outline of the hospital tower, rising like a dark monolith through the storm. The helipad glowed faintly red on top. 01. You're coming in fast, the tower warned. Repeat. You're descending too fast. I don't have a choice. She cut power to non-essential systems. The cabin lights dimmed. She rerouted everything to the rotors. 1 minute left. The chopper wobbled. The skid clipped a rooftop antenna from a nearby building. But she corrected instantly. Just hold, just a few more seconds, the mother screamed. The heart monitor in the back flatlined. One long, shrill beep. Emily's vision narrowed. She shoved the stick forward and dropped the last 50 feet in a desperate maneuver. The chopper slammed onto the helipad with a bone-jarring crunch. She killed the engine. The blades groaned as they spun to a stop. Then the doors flew open. Hospital staff swarmed in, a blur of white coats and blue scrubs. Paramedics lifted the boy out, performing chest compressions mid-run. Emily stumbled from the cockpit, legs numb, eyes barely open. She fell to one knee as the wind howled around her, gasping for breath. She didn't even hear the tower calling her name over the radio. Her world had narrowed to one thing. Had she gotten him there in time? Inside the hospital doors, the boy vanished behind a team of medics. The mother hesitated just long enough to look back at Emily. hands pressed together in silent thanks before disappearing inside. Emily sat down on the icy helipad, back against the chopper. She had made it, but the hardest question still remained. Had it been enough? The hospital doors slammed shut behind the trauma team, and with them, the boy vanished into the belly of emergency care. The winter wind screamed across the rooftop, flinging snow in wild spirals round Emily as she slumped beside the Black Hawk. Her hands, still gloved, rested limp on her knees, her helmet set crooked on her head, breath fogging up the visor. No one said anything to her at first. A nurse knelt beside her with a blanket, eyes wide. "Mom, are you hurt?" Emily shook her head. "No, just cold." That was an understatement. Her entire body ached, stiff with frozen sweat and adrenaline. She felt like her bones had turned brittle. Her jaw trembled uncontrollably. But she was alive, and for now, that had to be enough. From the edge of the rooftop, two ground crewmen stared at the chopper like it was a UFO. One of them muttered, "She flew that." Inside the air, alarms rang. Doctors shouted, orders flew. Emily heard none of it clearly. The wind, the roar of the rotors, and the long beep of that heart monitor were all still ringing in her head. Suddenly, the radio on her vest crackled. A voice broke through. "This is Fort Harrison. Medevac 01. Respond, over." She stared at it, blinking, then slowly raised it to her lips. "This is 01. There was a pause. "Captain Warren, what the hell did you do?" she exhaled. "I saved a life. You disobeyed a direct order. You went dark. Do you even understand the fallout?" She didn't answer right away. Then quietly, "If I hadn't left, he'd be dead by now." Another voice came on, this one more controlled, higher rank, probably her commander. "You've made this very complicated, Captain." She almost smiled. "So did the weather, sir." The radio went silent. Emily rose slowly, her muscles protesting every move. A young doctor exited the air, removing bloody gloves with a snap. He looked surprised to find her standing there. "You're the pilot?" "Yes." "We had to restart his heart twice," he said. His appendix had ruptured at least 12 hours ago. His lungs were starting to fill with fluid. Septic shock was setting in fast. Emily's stomach tightened. "Is he?" The doctor nodded. "He's stable now, weak, but holding. You got him here in the final stretch. Another 15 minutes, and he didn't finish." He didn't have to. Emily lowered her head and closed her eyes. 15 minutes. That was how thin the line had been. 15 minutes between life and death, honor and disgrace, silence and celebration. The doctor patted her arm. "You did good, Captain." Then he was gone. The hospital staff escorted her inside, wrapped her in warm blankets, gave her hot coffee, and tried to get her temperature up. But the cold in her chest wasn't from the snow. It was the knowledge of what came next. There would be an investigation, possibly a court-martial. Disobeying a direct order in a storm this size, flying unauthorized, risking government property and lives, it was enough to end her career. Her name could be stripped of rank, or worse, but none of it mattered as much as the mother's eyes, the boy's faint breathing, the fact that someone who had almost been lost was now clinging to a second chance. By midnight, her commander's voice returned on the line. "You're grounded until further notice. There will be a hearing. You better have a damn good explanation." Emily looked out the hospital window, where the snow was finally starting to ease. She replied calmly, "I already do." The snowstorm finally began to slow its furious march across Montana. But for Captain Emily Warren, the aftermath was just beginning. 2 hours after landing, Emily sat stiffly in a dim, windowless office inside Missoula General. Her flight suit had thawed, leaving damp patches on the carpet. Her hair clung to her face. Across the desk sat Colonel Raymond Harlow, Fort Harrison's chief of operations. His face was unreadable, jaw clenched like stone, one hand resting on a thick folder. The silence between them was heavier than any snowfall. "You understand the situation you've put this unit in," Harlow finally said, opening the file. "Unauthorized flight, defiance of direct orders, endangerment of government aircraft, breach of FAA protocol. There's a list." Emily sat straighter. "And there's also a boy who's still breathing because of it. That's not your call to make." "No," she said, voice steady. "It was my responsibility. That's the difference." Harlow leaned forward. "You got lucky, Captain. That storm could have killed you. You could have crashed into a residential area, or into a mountainside. You flew nearly 90 miles through a blizzard in an aircraft on the edge of mechanical failure. You gambled." "I made a decision," she replied, "not for glory, not for revenge, for a child." He stared at her, You think this makes you a hero? She didn't flinch. No, sir. It makes me accountable. Harlow closed the file slowly and rubbed his temples. We're assembling a tribunal. You'll present your case next week. In the meantime, you're grounded. Your access is suspended. Return to the base tonight. Emily stood, nodded once, and left the room without another word. The ride back to Fort Harrison was long and silent. She sat in the back of the Humvee, staring out at the darkened landscape. The storm had left everything coated in a blanket of ice. Trees drooped with the weight. Power lines hung low. But the world felt calm now still, almost like it had exhaled. She thought about the boy, about his mother's hands trembling in the cold, about the moment the heart monitor flatlined mid-flight. That sound still rang in her ears, but now there was another sound layered over it, a child's voice, faint but real, whispering, "Mom." Just before the hospital doors shut, it had happened. He'd come back at the base. Emily returned to her quarters. She expected tension, glares, whispers from her peers, but instead, she found something else, a note taped to her door. It was scribbled on lined paper, signed only, "Davis, you were right. If I'd had half your guts, I would have been in that seat beside you. Whatever happens, don't let them erase what you did. Some risks are worth taking. Some people are worth saving." She folded the note carefully and slipped it into her locker. For the first time in days, she slept. In the days that followed, news began to spread. Not officially, no press briefings, no statements, but through whispers and phone calls. A Medevac pilot had flown into a Category 3 winter storm to save a child, alone. No orders, no backup, just courage and instinct. It reached the local sheriff, who cleared a roadblock to the hospital. It reached the radio dispatcher, who'd nearly cried when she heard Emily's voice over the open band. And it reached the people of Polebridge. They called her the angel in the storm. Emily didn't care for titles. All she wanted was clarity at her tribunal and maybe, just maybe, to fly again. Because deep down, despite everything, despite the freezing winds and mechanical failures and consequences yet to come, one truth kept her going. She did the right thing. And that truth, no matter how heavy the fallout, was worth every second she spent in the sky. The tribunal convened exactly 1 week later, inside a sterile courtroom on base. The snow had melted into slush by then, but the air remained heavy with tension. The small room held a long oak table, 3 ranking officers seated on one side, and Captain Emily Warren on the other. Her uniform was clean, her posture straight, but her eyes carried the exhaustion of someone who had lived through both war and weather. Colonel Harlow sat at the center, flanked by 2 other high-ranking officials. He tapped a pen slowly as he read the first line of her file aloud. "Captain Warren, you are here today to address multiple breaches of protocol, including disobedience of command, endangerment of military assets, and unauthorized operation of a Medevac aircraft in extreme conditions." Emily nodded once. Understood. A legal advisor seated nearby spoke up. "Captain, before this board proceeds to recommendations, do you have a statement?" She stood. "Yes, I do." Her voice was clear, calm, no tremor, no theatrics. "I was told to stand down. I was told that the risk outweighed the reward, that the storm was too strong, that protocol must come first. But the truth is, none of that helped the boy who was dying in Polebridge. His name is Lucas, 13 years old. His mother thought she'd lose him that night. She called us not because she hoped we were her last hope, and no one was coming." She paused to meet their eyes. "I knew what it would cost me, but I also knew what it would cost him if I didn't go." One of the officers shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I didn't fly for praise or headlines. I flew because I knew I could make it. And if I hadn't tried, he'd be dead. I don't regret it, not a second of it." Then she sat down. The room was quiet. Colonel Harlow didn't speak right away. He looked at the other officers, exchanged brief glances, then cleared his throat. "This board recognizes the gravity of your actions. Under military law, disobedience cannot be taken lightly. However," he let the word hang in the air like a lifeline, "your decision resulted in a successful rescue of a civilian child under extreme conditions. You risked your life and aircraft, but did so with professional execution and without harm to others. Command will issue a formal letter of reprimand. You will be suspended from flight operations for 30 days. After that, you'll be reassessed for active duty." Emily blinked. No court-martial, no dismissal. Just 30 days, a lifetime. And yet nothing at all. As she stood to leave, Colonel Harlow said quietly, "We all read your report, Captain. We know what 15 minutes meant. She gave him a faint, grateful nod. Outside, sunlight cut through scattered clouds for the first time in days. The air smelled of thawing earth and pine. Emily walked out of the tribunal room into the open air, shoulders lighter than they'd been in weeks. Waiting by the base gate was someone she hadn't expected. Lucas's mother. Her coat was too thin for the weather. Her face looked pale, but her eyes lit up the second she saw Emily. "I heard today was the hearing," she said. Emily blinked in surprise. "How did you even?" "I have a cousin who works in logistics," the woman smiled. "I just wanted to say thank you again." "Lucas is awake, talking. He even ate scrambled eggs this morning." A lump rose in Emily's throat. "He asked if you could visit sometime. He's been telling everyone his pilot saved him." Emily gave a soft laugh, brushing her hair back as a breeze passed. "I'd like that. Tell him I'll bring a model helicopter." The mother reached forward and hugged her quick tight, full of things no words could say. Then she walked away, leaving Emily under the blue Montana sky, finally free to breathe again. Spring arrived quietly in Montana. The snow melted from the trees, revealing branches bent but unbroken. Roads reopened, trails dried, and towns once cut off by the storm began to buzz with life again. But in the small town of Polebridge, nestled near the edge of Glacier National Park, one memory hadn't faded with the snow. People still talked about the flight. The townsfolk told it like a legend, how a Medevac pilot defied military orders, cut through a blizzard alone, and dropped from the sky to snatch a boy back from the brink of death. They called her the angel in the storm, and some of the older folks swore they'd seen her flying in a halo of moonlight. It wasn't true, of course, but that didn't stop the story from growing. Lucas recovered slowly, but fully. By the time he was back in school, he was already rehearsing his version of what happened. "She came down like a superhero," he told classmates, "right through the clouds, like she didn't even care if the storm tried to stop her." He kept a photo on his wall, the Black Hawk, its skids frozen solid on the helipad, snow melting off its sides like armor after battle. Beneath it, in a child's handwriting, the words, "Captain Warren, the pilot who didn't wait." At Fort Harrison, 30 days passed. Captain Emily Warren returned to duty quietly. Without ceremony, her reprimand stayed on file, but no one treated her like a criminal. Quite the opposite. Pilots nodded respectfully when she walked through the hangar. New cadets asked about the storm mission like it was sacred text. Even Colonel Harlow, who rarely offered more than a grunt of recognition, stopped her in the hallway one morning. He said only, "Fly smart, Captain," but it meant everything. She was back in the sky again before long. Each mission after felt different, clearer, not because she sought danger, but because she had touched what it meant to truly choose someone else's life over your own. That changes a pilot forever. 3 months later, a package arrived at the base. No return label, just a handwritten card tucked inside a small box. Inside was a compass, old, brass, scratched on the edges. It had clearly seen years of storms, maybe decades, but it still pointed true. The note read, "In case you ever find yourself lost in the snow again, from a mother who owes you everything, A.M." Emily carried it with her from then on, tucked into her flight vest near her heart. Later that summer, the town of Polebridge held its first Resilience Festival, a small outdoor gathering meant to celebrate survival, community, and kindness. Music played, local vendors sold syrup and handmade crafts, kids threw snowballs made of cotton, and at the heart of it all stood a wooden post with a bronze plaque, mounted on the trail leading into the woods. It read, "Warren Pass, named in honor of Captain Emily Warren, who flew when no one else would." She didn't know about it until Davis called her that evening. Voice gruff, "You're a trail now, Captain. Guess that means you finally made your mark." She smiled into the phone. "Just means I better live up to it." The sky wasn't always calm after that. There were more storms, more rescues, more moments where choices had to be made in seconds. But something had changed. People flew faster now. They hesitated less, because one woman had shown what it meant to believe that no life was too far, no storm too fierce, no order more important than humanity. And whenever young pilots faced a whiteout and thought about turning back, they'd remember her story, the one where hope was fading until she took off. The end.